Now that you understand the basics of unit testing, I want to introduce you to a way of writing apps that some developers enjoy: test-driven development. The basic idea of test-driven development is that rather than writing the test after you write your code, you write your test first. Obviously, at first your test will fail because you haven't actually written the code yet. But then when you write your code, you have some more confidence that it works exactly the way that you intended it to. One of the nice things about test-driven development is that it forces you to put some thought up front about how you want your code to work before you write the code. It's also a great way to ensure that you definitely take the time to write tests for all your code instead of forgetting to test some parts. In some cases, test-driven development can result in improved quality and increase the speed of your development. Now, I want to point out that not every developer likes to use test-driven development. And even when developers do use test-driven development, sometimes they only use it for certain parts of their app, like for just the data models. Basically, whether or not to use test-driven development comes down to a personal choice if this is the way you like to work or not. We're going to try out test-driven development throughout the rest of this course when it comes to developing our data model. And that way you can understand how test-driven development works and if it's something that you might like to incorporate into your own workflow in the future. For this particular episode, we're going to try out test-driven development to test out the game's points method. Now, right now, we've temporarily hard-coded the method to always return 999. The next item on our programming to-do list is to properly calculate the user's score. So, again, we could jump straight into implementing the points method, but remember that in test-driven development, you're supposed to write your test first and then write the code. So, let's write a few tests that will currently fail, but will eventually work once we write the code. Let's give this a try. All right, let's use test-driven development to test out our points method the way we want it to actually work, not this placeholder that's just returning 999. So we don't need this example anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We're going to add two tests actually. We're going to add one where the slider value is greater than the target value, and we're going to add a second test where the slider value is less than the target value. So let's start with the first one. So we're going to type in func test score positive. Like so. And we're going to say var guess equals game.target plus 5. So in other words, the random target value, whatever that is, 5 more in a positive direction away from it. And then we're going to say var score equals game.points, slider value, and then we're going to pass in whatever our guess is there. And then we're going to do xct assert equal. And we're going to pass in our score. And what do we expect that to be? Well, the way we want Bullseye to work is currently, if you get exactly perfect score, you should get 100 points. And then depending on how far you're off from that score, you should get fewer points. So if you're 5 away, you should be 5 less than 100. In other words, 95 points. That's the way we want it to work. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this test and do another test, but in the negative direction. So I'm going to change from positive to negative. And this time, we're just going to go the other way. So if the target value, for example, is 50, so we might have 45 here instead. And this one will be 55. But you're still 5 away, so the score should still be 95, even if you're negative instead of positive in this case. So when we run these tests, these are going to fail because we haven't written the code yet. We're also getting some warnings, and like I said, I'm going to explain to you later on in this course why we're getting these warnings and how to fix them, but for now, just ignore that. What we're trying to do, though, is to make these tests pass. Now that we have some tests that we want to pass, we just need to write the code so that they do pass, and that's what we're going to do in the next few episodes.